good, and we'll have a very good and deep discussions in our theme today. So good morning. Good morning in LATAM, good afternoon in Europe. Today we're going to discuss recycling. Welcome to our first Extended Producer Responsibility International Forum. It's a great honor to have you all with us. We had more than 900 people registered for the event. So I think we'll have many questions and many interesting discussions. Just to introduce myself, I'm Marcos Matos. I'm one of the eureciclo's partners and also Director of Sales and Marketing. I'll be with you in the event today. Just some information before the start of the event, the start of the discussion. We will have three parts in the event today. We are going to discuss first the recycling policies and the EPR implementation trajectory in each of these countries, Germany, France, Brazil, and Chile. And after, we're going to discuss the trends in the recycling scenario for the coming years. So we're going to discuss a little bit about past and after a little bit about future. And in the third part of the event, we'll have a Q&A session. So in the Q&A session, and now I have some information to give it to you. The event will be presented in English, but we'll have simultaneous translations from English to Portuguese. We have, so you can choose the language just in the Zoom. You can choose English or Portuguese. If you choose English, you're going to hear us. If you choose Portuguese, you're going to hear the simultaneous translation from Maggie and Jacqueline. Hello, Maggie. Hello, Jacqueline. So for the Q&A, you have a button here, Q&A, in the Zoom app. You can send questions for her in both or English and Portuguese. And I will receive all questions, and I will do the question in the third part of the event. So for the Q&A, if you receive many questions and you do not have time to do it with our speakers, I would like to ask you to put your email, because after we can send it to the speakers, and you ask them if they can answer. If they answer, we can send it to you back to you. Okay, so we have 5 speakers today, and they have a lot of experience in recycling, and they've been working with this for many years. So I think we'll have a very interesting and deep discussion today. I hope everyone will learn a lot. You know, I'm very anxious because I read a little bit about their biography, their experience, and very excited for the discussion. So we bought 4 countries, 2 from Europe, Germany and France, and 2 for LATAM, Brazil and Chile. On the German side, we are honored to present Ursula Denison, who is Director of Sales and International Strategy at DSD System and Managing Director of Pro Europe. Guten Tag, Ursula. On the French side, we're very proud to present Axel Darut, Head of European Business at CITEO, Anne-Sophie Michel, Innovation Manager at CITEO. Bonjour Axel, bonjour Anne-Sophie. Ça va bien?
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Très bien, merci.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. From LATAM, I would like to present 2 friends of mine. First of them, Thiago. E aí, Thiago, tudo bem? Thiago is the founder of New Hope Ecotech and CEO of Reciclo.
Olá, tudo bom?
E aí, Thiago, tudo bom?
Tudo ótimo.
Então, tá bom. I also would like to present Marie Chauloux. She is the head of international expansion and founder of Todosreciclamos. Buenos dias, Marie. Bonjour, Marie. Bom dia, Marie.
Hola, buenos días. Bonjour. Bom dia, todo mundo.
So Marie, she received good morning in 3 languages because she's French, but she worked with us in Brazil, and now she's leading our operation in Chile. So it's interesting. Just to have an information, New Hope Ecotech and Eureciclo operates in both countries, Brazil and Chile. In Brazil, our brand is known as Eureciclo. In Chile, our brand is known as Todosreciclamos. Okay. Just to have a little bit of context in our event, today we are living a different time, right? Everyone, we have almost 1,000 people registered for the event, but we are all online because of this pandemic. So during this period, we stay in a lot of home, and we realize how important it is to stay in our home with our family, and also to have a home. And I would like to take this reflection for our planet. So Earth is our home of all living beings. But in the last 120 years, our impact in this planet has been huge. Just to have an idea, 120 years ago, the world population was a little bit higher than 1.5 billion people. Today, we are more than 7 billion people. So we are consuming much more, and automatically we are generating much more waste. Just to reflect, so our big home, Earth, is under pressure. And a lot of actions that are gonna increase the longevity of the planet will be very welcome. In this context, recycling and circular economy are very welcome to help us in this actions for help the planet. So in Europe, we can realize that the EPR Extend Producer Responsibility solution have helped to develop recycling. In the other side, the recycling LATAM is relatively new, even though it has become very important for our society. In the first part of the event, we are going to discuss the trajectory of implementing EPR to the present day. We want to answer the following questions. How is recycling working today in your country? How was the reverse logistics system implemented? Extended producer responsibility law, the producer's path, and the main differentials of each of the systems. What are the strengths and peculiarities in the way that each country has implemented recycling policies and EPR? Also, we would like to analyze and realize how was the increase in the percentage of the recycling in the recent years in each country. So for start the discussion, I want to present Ursula Denison. Ursula Denison has been with the pioneer German Green Dot system for package recycling, der Grünpunkt. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly.
Very good.
But Dual System Deutschland GmbH, DGP, from its beginning in 1991. In the early 90s, she was in charge of establishing the international customer department for over 5,000 clients in Europe and overseas, and was frequently asked to speak about the pioneering Green Dot system to international stakeholders in Europe, Japan, and North America. She has since then led several strategic projects with DSD involving pricing, market research, brand development, improvement of customer service, and international EPR strategy. She was actively involved in the change management process of DSD during its transformation from a monopoly non-profit organization owned by obliged industry to a private-owned for-profit company in 2005. Mrs. Denison is Director of Sales and International Strategy of the Der Grünpunkt, Germany, ensuring that the company's more than 20,000 customers all over the world receive the best possible customer service. She can provide first-hand insight in the challenges and opportunities of EPR in packaging recycling in Germany, where the shift from a monopoly system to a competitive recycling economy has been achieved. Matching her international orientation, she has been actively involved with Pro-Europe EPRL, the European Association of 31 Green Dot Packaging Recovery Organization, and is leading the organization as managing director since 2013. She frequently contributes to international conferences on EPR and package recycling both in Europe and North America, and serves as a consultant to multinational brands owners as well as other EPR schemes in Europe and North America. She's also a member of the expert group on defining a recyclability standard of the Germany Central Packaging Register, and serves on several boards dealing with packaging sustainability. In her role in the developing company strategy, she's active in numerous working groups on EPR, packaging sustainability, and recycling collaboration with industry associations in Germany and EU institutions. Mrs. Denison has lived and studied in Germany and United States. She received an MA from University of Maryland in 1991. She's married to a US citizen and has 2 sons. What amazing bio, Ursula. So I would like to...
I'm impressed.
I'm impressed. So I'll give the words to you. So you have 15 minutes to start your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you see my screen? Let's see. No, you cannot.
No, I cannot yet.
Okay, and I'll have to go in. All right, working on this. Here we go. So now we should be able to do it. And voila. How is this?
Oh, yeah,
now?
we're not seeing, no.
Are you seeing it now?
No, no.
Still not. Okay. Well, seems like I have some studying to do. There we go. I have to click share.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Now it's working.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Okay, good enough. All right. So I have now two. You see the presentation mode or the outline mode? There we go.
Yes, we can see it in a
Yes.
presentation mode.
All right. Good. So let's start. Welcome everybody. Even though I cannot see you, I feel you. I am very honored to be invited to this event, and of course, our respective backgrounds and conditions are very different in Latin America versus Europe with regard to waste management, environmental policies, etc. So I will be presenting from a German or European background, but I'm very curious about our dialogue and discussion afterwards. And I think we can both benefit from this discussion. I have 15 minutes to describe 30 years. I will try my best to do that. You will all recognize this picture. It's a picture of November 10th in the morning, the Berlin Wall being torn down piece by piece. Now you wonder, what does that have to do with the green dot? When there was still 2 Germanys, the capitalist West Germany used to send their waste to socialist East Germany against hard currency. And when unification came, that was no longer an option. So there was a great fear of a waste crisis, of overflowing landfills. And that was the impetus for the conservative government back then to implement extended producer responsibility for the first time in policy. So that's where we come from. The green dot today is still the #1 pioneer in the EPR system for packaging. We are active in compliance services. We produce our own plastic recyclates, and we also offer services in consulting, design for recycling, etc. We cooperate closely with 31 other EPR schemes in Europe and North America. We have 424 employees, more than 28,000 clients all over the world, clients who send packaged products to Germany. Another interesting aspect, people always wonder, does recycling actually save CO2? And yes, it does, even though if you add up all the collection efforts, the truck the gasoline used in trucks, etc., you still come up with a positive eco balance, and this is why for 2018 we could save 1.1 million tons in CO2 equivalents from our recycling. Let me continue. Oh, my thing is not working. Okay, there we go. Some milestones in company history. Again, we were founded in 1990 as a non-profit system owned by obliged industry, as a full cost system. So we were in charge of covering the whole cost of the collection and sorting and recycling of packaging. 1991, EPR legislation was implemented, so we had a quick start. In 2001, the EU Commission opened up the market for competition. The reason was that during the 90s, we were using our great power and leverage as a monopoly to really collect a lot of funds to set up this system. Cost a lot of money, and wherever something costs a lot of money, there's a great impetus for competition to drive down cost. So that is a development that started in 2001. In 2003, the German Green environmental minister introduced a deposit system in Germany, and those materials, the PET bottles and metal cans, were taken out of our system into the separate deposit system. That meant that from one day to the next, we lost 1/3 of our revenue and 25% of our materials. So that was a big blow, but we survived it. In 2005 and 2006 was another milestone. We were privatized in 2005 because stakeholders thought that we would be better ready for impending competition if we were a privatized company. In 2011, we started producing our own post-consumer recyclates in our own plants, thus extending the value chain into production. And these days we are faced with new legislation in Germany, in Europe, with ambitious recycling targets, with all kinds of requirements regarding EPR that we are trying to tackle. But we have a lot of experience in adapting to new surroundings. So let me share with you the system in Germany is a dual system, the split responsibility between municipalities and the dual systems, the EPR schemes. Municipalities are in charge of residual waste, of organic waste, and of printed materials, newspapers, etc. And EPR is responsible for waste paper packaging, for lightweight packaging, that is all plastics, metals, and composites, and for glass. And again, there we have 100% cost and organizational obligation. So we have to cover all the costs. As an EPR system, you are in the center of the circular economy loop. We make contracts with producers and retailers for EPR compliance. We inform the consumer about sorting and separating their waste. We organize the collection and sorting of those materials through tenders. We trade the materials that we collect and sort. And now, and this is what I call EPR 2.0, we are also closing the loop by using some of the plastics that we collect and sort to produce our own recycled plastics. One of the successes we can show is clearly the high rates of recycling for packaging in Germany. Especially impressive for the most problematic or most challenging material, I should say, which is always plastics. We've come from 3.1% plastic recycling in 1991 to more than 50% in 2018. Those are the latest available national numbers. And this is only for household packaging. This is also a special condition of the German system, that it's only household packaging, not industrial, not commercial. So that's what makes it a little bit more challenging. But with all the work we've done, it's still not enough. We are getting new targets, new recycling targets from our national government and also on the European level. The target we have to fulfill right now, and again, plastics is the most challenging, is 58.5%, and that is only mechanical recycling. It's not chemical recycling. It's not waste to fuel procedures. It's only turning plastics back into plastics. And the next new target is coming up in January 22 with 63% of recycling for plastics packaging, and you see that the other targets are also quite ambitious. A challenge that we have had from the beginning, and sometimes I wonder how we were ever able to survive this, we have always collected a lot more packaging from the households than we had licensed or registered under contract. So a lot more was collected than industry paid for. And you see some bumps in this line down here. That's the financing line, where there's little peaks in the financial contributions. That's usually when new legislation was enacted. So it's always a little bit of a dance. Government writes the laws, EPR systems and market actors look at the new laws and find loopholes, then the financing goes down again, then government sharpens the definition, closes the loopholes, and then it's a back and forth, the chicken and the egg discussion. But as you see, we're closing the gap between the materials that are financed and the materials collected, so we're on a good path. Overall, we can say that we have invested a lot of money into the system. In 1998, the overall cost was over 2 billion euros for 80 million inhabitants. And today we're at about 1.2 billion euros. So that means we've we cut our cost almost in half. It's going to go up a little bit in the next years because we will have to perform even better than we have been. But still, that's a significant savings. All right. There's always a discussion, a philosophical discussion, which is the best model for EPR? Is it a monopoly like Green Dot used to be and like CITEO still is, even though that's sometimes not seen as a nice word? Or do we need competition in that field of industry? What is good to see that in the last years, the principle of extended producer responsibility has found a lot of support, not only from the European Commission, but also from the OECD. But there has been some discussion about the implementation. What is the best model for EPR to implement? So we had commissioned a study by Deloitte on extended producer responsibility and competition, and the key takeaways show that there's basically two main organizational types. There's the operational competition model, which is something we have in Germany, and more the financial single scheme model that is prevalent in France. And neither is better than the other. They're very different. It depends on the national preferences, on the philosophies of stakeholders, on the relationships between industry and government to decide which model is the best for the market under consideration. Both models need a clear legislative framework. They need sanctions, they need controls in order to really deliver the best results. And on the EU level, the discussion we say has to retain enough flexibility for each member state to choose the path that fits the best to their needs, whether that is a single scheme monopoly or a competitive setting. Is to be seen. So lessons to be learned from EPR in Germany. We're all in this together. We all have to cooperate, to exchange, to collaborate, think outside the box. That makes it very challenging, but also the most fascinating field of industry that I can imagine. But everybody has to really cooperate. The second point, recycling costs money. Recycling cannot be had for free. It is always more expensive to collect and process materials separately. But it's only more expensive because not the full cost of the environmental impact of that packaging is included in the product price. So as long as that is not the case, we will have to subsidize recycling activities. And if you want to reach ambitious targets, you also need to deal with the necessary investment. Germany shows that competition has reduced costs and improved service, but it requires good supervision and enforcement on the part of legislators and the state. And legislation is sometimes slow to adapt to new market developments and the competitive landscape. That's been a challenge for us in the past. And outlook, we will be talking about new trends in the second part of the conversation. The next step, as I say, is EPR 2.0, closing the loop for household plastics. We need to find places and good applications for all the plastics that we recycle, because otherwise we end up with park benches everywhere, and nobody wants that. So that is part one of my presentation. Thank you.
Ursula, thank you. You were awesome because you speak in less than 15 minutes. Thank you very much. I think I would ask you to stop to share your screen.
Yeah. Let's see. Do that.
Okay, so continuing our presentation, now we're going to invite friends with Axel Darut. Axel, advisor for EU Affairs and Data at CITEO. CITEO is the company in charge of the extended producer responsibility schemes for household package for graphic and printed paper in France, working with 20,000 packers and fillers, 900 local municipalities, and 300 recyclers. The annual turnover is around 850 million euros per year for both activities. He joined the Public Policy Affairs Department of CITEO in 2018 after experiencing high administration advisory firm for the public sector. He works very closely with all the actors of the packaging value chain, in particular on the circular economy package, the European Plastic Strategy, the Circular Plastic Alliance, the National Pacts on Plastic Packaging, the new Circular Economy Action Plan within the European Green Deal, and EPR projects around the world. He also a lecture on circular economy, European affairs for the University of Paris and the SEC International Business School. He graduated from University Paris Dauphine, Master in Law and Regulatory Markets, and from College of Europe, LLM in EU Law. And also have Anne-Sophie Michel, Innovation Manager at CITEO. Anne-Sophie, after 7 years as a research and consultant in Europe and the Middle East, working on public policy, talent and related projects, innovation strategy, partnering with senior government officials and business executives. Anne-Sophie undertook a 1-year leadership development program in Paris to work on environmental and social innovation projects in 2017. Convinced that innovation with purpose is key to make the transition happen Anne-Sophie joined CITEO Innovation Team in October 2017 and has been working since then to build and develop the CITEO Open Innovation Program Circular Challenge. Wow, very, very nice bio from Anne-Sophie Axel. So you can start, you have 15 minutes.
Great, thanks a lot. Hello everyone. Let's start. So yeah, I will try to make the link with Ursula's presentation, of course, but I was not even born when TSD and CITEO was created. So I'm maybe still the youngest guy here, but maybe to have like a new look of what is an EPR, a new vision, and not an alternative one, but really a new one with what was already mentioned about the EPR scheme. So as Ursula said and mentioned, we are really at the center of the circular economy loop, since we are directly in relations with the sorting and recycling operators, the companies which contribute directly to the EPR schemes, municipalities, because we have directly contracts with them. Depending on the sorting performance, we finance the sorting collections of packaging and paper, and directly with consumers, since consumers are on this raising campaigns to really mobilize citizens and to have them under the circular economy loop. So what is an EPR scheme? Ursula already explained what is an EPR system from the European perspective, just to have a closer loop of what is an EPR for the French market. So it's, as I said, more than 20,000 clients and a turnover of 710 millions of euro for packaging. And we only have the scope of household packaging, but with the European framework, now we need to have all the household packaging sector, as an EPR scheme. So in France, we need to have a broader scope for the EPR, which means packaging from the HoReCa sector, so coffee, hotel, and restaurant, plus industrial and commercial packaging. So we need to implement this for 2025. We had a big and challenging new circular economy law in France, and I will mention some point of the law because it's very ambitious one regarding the EU regulation. And I will directly go to what is CITEO. So it's a private company with a non-profit purpose, with a general interest mission, and under French government approval. So we need a state accreditations to be fully operational, but we are not really fully operational since we are a financial EPR scheme, which means that we have the contributions of brand owners and we help directly municipalities. We contribute to finance the system. It's 80% of the net optimized cost for household packaging, and which means that we contribute and we give finance to municipalities depending on the starting performance, as I explained. So it's an application of the polluter pay principles that was introduced by the OECD. We were created just after TSD, so in 1992, and we had Ecofolio, which was before the EPR scheme for papers that was created in 2007, and the two of EPR organizations merged together, so 3 years ago, to have CITEO, which means that now I mentioned household packaging, but we are also in charge of papers. So we have both accreditations with the government to have those two EPR schemes. In France, you have almost 15 EPR schemes, and it will be with the law 20 EPR schemes. So it's for electronic products, it's for furniture, it's for lights, it will be for toys, it will be for wet wipers, etc. So when a brand owner paid €1 for CITEO, what does it mean for the EPR organization missions? So it means that we give more to the collection system and the sorting system, and then we have some budgets regarding consumer awareness raising campaigns to R&D. So we have specific R&D projects to close the loop specifically on plastic, as mentioned Ursula. We have some budgets also for eco-design actions, so to help directly brand owners to have a better packaging, so monomaterials packaging, lightest packaging, to be fully recyclable or reusable. And we have also some part of the budget for the quality and operations to be sure with the audit and the quality check that the quality is as it was requested by the accreditation. What about the figures? So the recycling rate for 2018 was 70% for the household packaging and 59% for the printed graphic papers. So with the state accreditations for 2022, so in 2 years, we'll have to reach the target of 75% for household packaging. So it's quite challenging, and 65% for printed and graphic papers. So as you can see, the figures are not the same compared to materials of packaging. And the most challenging one is regarding plastics, of course. We don't have any deposit return system such as in Germany, in France. CITEO was quite in favor to have a deposit return system, since we have now new ambitions and challenging targets with the European regulations, so the Single-Use Plastic Directive, to reach the target of 77% of plastic bottles collected to be recycled in 2025, and 90% for the end of 2029 for all plastic beverage bottles. But there is not only plastic beverage bottles, you have also flexibles, food containers, etc. So as in Germany, we have a lot of challenge to have this EPR 2.0, so to be fully recyclable for all plastic and all plastic packaging, of course. So I mentioned the point about the financial EPR scheme. So it was a decision from the national level. So it means that when it was created, the decision was made to keep the competencies of the waste collections to the municipalities. So it means that they are in charge of the waste collection, and then we contribute to finance the waste collection and the sorting system. So we are not organizational, which means that municipalities have directly a contract with operators to collect the household waste, so directly the household packaging and graphic papers, and then we finance depending on the sorting performance, as I mentioned. So we don't have directly CITEO trucks who goes directly to a household to take the waste out of home. It's really at the end of the operators and with contracts with municipalities. And then, yeah, we had this Grenelle de l'environnement, so environmental engagement commitment in 2011. So to have selective collections in place for all the French territory. And now with this selective collections, we have now the sorting instructions that we extended. So we have the extension of sorting instructions, which means that now French citizens have to put all the plastic packaging in the same bin, so the same sorting bin, to have new RG projects for the packaging that are not fully recyclable. So it means that the idea and the concrete target is to have 100% of solutions for whole packaging, and specifically also for plastic packaging. So as you can now have in your mind, it's that the fact that we have two challenges, big one. The first one is about city and the other one is about plastic. So what does it mean for city? It means that we need to improve the collection points, especially for glass, but it's also the case for other packaging. We have a specific challenge for the on-the-go consumption in France. So it means the public space where people consume. We don't have any selective bin. So we need to really improve the system directly with municipalities to have a better collection. We need to directly communicate to citizens, because to explain what is the concrete results of the sorting gesture, but also to be sure that they are fully aware of what is a waste and what is a littering, and to put it in a good bin to be sure that at the end it's fully on the loop. And also to have some innovations with our clients. So Anne-Sophie will have a closer loop on this topic after. Just to give you some pictures. So for example, in France, so in Paris directly, big city, small for you, but a big one for us. We had some collection points directly on the streets. So to be sure that even if you have like if you live in a small apartment in a big building, you can be sure that you have a selecting point selective collection point, sorry, on the streets. And then you have also a selective collection points directly next to the sea, to be sure that at the end it's not could be littered. You have also the on-the-go selective collections, so specifically on airports and on train stations and on the subway, to be sure that also people will sort the waste because they have directly the system in place, because it's not often the case. Plus, we fully promote the pay-as-you-throw policy. So it's directly to the hand of the municipalities. So municipalities could have this policy to be sure also to increase the figures of the selective collections. So more you put waste on your bin, more you have to pay. So the idea is really to improve the selective collection. We also launched raising consumers awareness campaigns, such as this one. So it was directly with competitors from the beverage sector to explain that one bottle of Coke could be another bottle of another brand. So it was quite a good one. Plus, we have another campaigns directly with schools and with children to explain what is circular economy, what is waste management, and so on. Regarding the plastic challenge, so we need for sure to double the recycling rates for plastic. So it means for all plastic packaging. So also to extend sorting instructions, that's what I've mentioned. So by the end of 2022, also to create positive drive effects to all materials. So it means that even if someone sorts for plastic waste, we want to be sure that at the end it will be a creative and positive effect for other materials, such as, for example, aluminum can. And also by extend the sorting instructions to also modernize the sorting center and to have a spillover effect on other materials, and to launch R&D projects on specific materials of packaging. Another tool that we have to really reach the targets that we have under the state accreditations, it's the eco-modulations of fee. So we put in place this since 9 years. Just to be brief, the main idea is to have a bonus and malus system. So now also TSD is working on this, and we have a concrete target at the European level to have eco-modulations for all EPR for packaging. And the idea is to have a bonus-malus system to be sure that at the end we have a good eco-design of packaging, and at the end also that it will be fully recyclable or reusable, or it could be. So linked with these eco-modulations, we have also guidelines. So directly with brand owners, recyclers, operators, so all the stakeholders of the value chain, to be sure that at the end we have the same advice regarding one specific plastic packaging. And just to finish, so Ursula already mentioned this, so we have a lot of challenge. So specifically at the European level, so with a circular economy package, with a specific circular plastic alliance, so to have 10 million tons of recycled plastic into new products in 2025. We have an European Plastic Pact that was launched by 14 member states, and the idea is to have a reductions of virgin plastic, to push for reusable packaging, and to have the increase of recycled content into a new plastic products. We have also the Single-Use Plastic Directive, and with a new scope of the EPR, which is about the littering costs. So now the EPR need to to cover the returning cost of some packaging. And we have also a hot issue because there will be an European Council this weekend with the chief of member states at the European level regarding the economic recovery plan following the COVID situations. So under this recovery plan, we have the idea and disposition on tax on non-recycled plastic packaging. It could be really powerful, but we have to see what will be the transposition at the national level to be sure that it's fully effective and efficient. And for the French level, so we have the anti-waste law to promote circular economy. This one regarding for specific disposition on packaging have quite challenging targets regarding reusable packaging. So now as an EPR organization, we will need to promote also reusable packaging. So for household sector, but also on coffee, hotel and restaurants. We have under discussion a national strategy on plastic. So to completely have a reductions of virgin plastic use. And linked with the European Plastic Pact, we have a specific national pact on plastic packaging directly with brand owners. So to reduce the use of virgin plastic, to have the increase of recycled content, and to increase also the figures on recycled packaging. And now I gave the floor to Anne-Sophie regarding the innovations topics.
Axel, we passed the 50 minutes. Okay, just to give to tell you, if you can continue, please continue. Just to let you know.
Okay. So we may give
continue,
the floor
just to hurry a little bit. Sorry.
Thanks a lot. Anne-Sophie, your turns.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. Is it okay then? Should I continue now, or you prefer that I speak later about innovation, as you want?
In fact, Anne-Sophie, we're gonna we have a second part that we're gonna say about the future. I don't know if you can introduce here, but you have the second part of the event. Maybe we can let it later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so it's fine. I'll do it later. No issue.
Okay, great. Now we have Thiago. Axel, could you stop to share your screen, please? Okay, thanks. Okay, now we have Thiago, that is a co-founder of New Hope Ecotech and CEO Reciclo. Just before, thank you, Axel, for your presentation. Was pretty awesome also. We had a lot of content, and it will increase our discussion here in LATAM. So Thiago, he's an entrepreneur with strong experience in the business sector, mobility and environmental services, skilled in business and market transformation, corporate development, M&A, and business modeling. MSc from École Centrale, France, and MBA from Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management. Thiago, feel free to start. We have 15 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So first, thank you, Marcos, and all the New Hope Ecotech team for organizing this roundtable. And also, I really appreciate both Ursula and Axel's previous presentations, because for us, from a much more emerging market in context, is just like seeing the future of what a much more mature market could become. So, and I also must apologize because since we are in this early days of EPR in Latin America, we don't have such solid numbers and figures to share, but still we are trying to do our best here. So mostly different from what Ursula and all the European context, emerging markets and mostly in Latin America, there are some issues related to recycling. In Brazil, specifically, 90% of the waste is collected, so we don't have any major rupture or issues with collection. We don't see trash on our streets. However, only 3 to 7% of post-consumption waste is really recycled. So a lot of the waste that is collected actually goes to the landfills at the best circumstance when not into open landfills or even the ocean. So we have that environmental context here in Brazil, and at the same time, we have a social context that 8% of that from 3 to 7 of the recycling target of the recycling rate. Sorry, so that target has been achieved through one of the 800,000 waste pickers. And again, that 800,000 it's not a really robust number. There are some source that says the number of waste pickers in Brazil varies from 400,000 to more than 1 million individuals that actually goes through the streets collecting and sorting waste. So that's a pretty different reality from what we've seen from our previous colleagues, and that's where eureciclo enters. So our mission is to build a sustainable world through recycling, and the word value is pretty important. It's not value only in increasing awareness in consumers and producers, but also valuing is like building up all the economic equations to know we should invest into recycling and which recycling materials and which recycling chains are profitable and which aren't, which operates at a loss and needs subsidies to survive. So the word value for us, it's both into this soft aspect of increasing awareness and also in the hard aspect of the economics behind the value chain. And we are designed to solve both problems that I've just defined before. So the final destination of packaging and the marginalization of current recycling agents. And so what we do to try to solve those two huge problems is we try to bring to Latin America all that experience in Europe. Of course, there are different experiences for each different countries in Europe, but we are trying to bring all this experience and knowledge into Brazil. And we create what we call an environmental compensation system for packaging recycling, which fits the same role as a packaging recovery organization would have if there was any in Brazil, and of trying to achieve recycling targets through organizational and financial scheme. So we do not directly operate any of the hardware. So we don't own trucks, we are not verticalized, we don't own the sorting facilities, but we try to foment and develop the recycling chain through financial incentives. Today we are more than 50 people on our team. As I said, mostly are economics and environmentalists, and we have developed in order to pay those incentives, a huge tracking system and really high-tech tracking system. So we have a lot of programmers and developers on the team as well, and we are a benefit corporation since 2017. So here is just some awards and partnerships that we have since the beginning. So the company was founded at the end of 2016. So if we compare with both German and France systems, 2016 is just like 4 years ago. So, but it's still, we were born in this high-tech, digital, data tracking, shared economy reality, and now virtual reality, right? And And so we were incubated by Google, awarded by the World Economic Forum, which has a really important role towards circular economy, by the Swedish government and by Endeavor. One of our main partners here in Brazil is the São Paulo's Industry Federation, Fiesp, and so on. So that's just some acknowledgements that we have received. And today we offer our service to more than 2,300 producers and from more than 60 industry associations. So we have 67 is the exact figure of industry associations in our board. And the companies and all the producers, they come from those industry associations. And as I said, our impact, 2,300 conscious producers, and we've tracked more than 7.5 million tons of waste. That's more or less a third of what Brazil produces of post-consumption waste in a year. And most of our asset is based on that big data, on that data tracking. And with that big data, we are pretty aware of where we should invest and finance to achieve the recycling targets. And in our platform, it's an open platform. We have more than 6,000 recycling actors, from municipalities to collectors, sorting facilities, waste pickers, intermediaries, and also recycling facilities. So we track data from all those different actors, and with that certified audit tracked data, we can issue a recycling certificate. For our European peers, it looks like a packaging recovery note from the UK system, but it's much more focused on the sorting facility, because with that data, we have discovered that the bottleneck at the supply chain, at the recycling supply chain in Brazil, is the sorting step of the whole recycling chain. And so we receive, and it's a pretty inclusive system. As I said, we have not municipalities or waste contractors, but we also have waste pickers, and even actually any entity that can collect and sort and sell recyclables can become an operator at our system, and also receive financial support via. So of course that must be a process and an audition process, but it's pretty free and open to receive that additional revenue. And then we have, since we were born in a digital space, we have more than 5 million monthly interactions. We use a lot of digital channels and social media both on recycling and campaigns from our producers. So that's our major figures. A little background on the regulatory framework in Brazil. So it all started at the same year Eco Embalagem, so a former CITEO name was born, and at Rio 92. Rio 92 was a conference, a UN conference towards environmental, and the basic focus of Rio 92 was it was where the major baselines of the current carbon credits were designed, but also there was like on the sidelines there were a lot of discussion about waste and applying this same concept of environmental externalities that were being discussed for the carbon credits. The EPR law that was being applied in Europe had its inception during Rio 92. So it was the first time that Brazilians were talking about EPR and here in our country. But then we have like more than 18 years until the solid waste national policy in 2010 was actually created, and the solid waste national policy didn't come with the term EPR, extended producer responsibility. It comes much more with a shared producer responsibility. So all the different stakeholders, all the different actors on the value chain, from the producers to the distributors to the retailers and us as citizens, we all have our shared responsibility, our shared accountability towards the recycling, and that creates a lot of confusion. So who does what? There is a big lack of clarity towards roles and responsibilities in the 2010. But it's still some companies, some large industry associations, they create the packaging sectorial agreement, which actually put together a compendium of different projects and to try to achieve the recycling targets that was defined. Just for a comparison, in Brazil, the recycling targets, it's about 22%. It's equal across all different materials. And then that's where, through this sectoral agreement, we define the targets, and also we define some modus operandi on how to achieve those targets. And 3 years later, there's been a huge discussion on whether those targets has been achieved. And then at the state level, some states took the autonomy to do the law reinforcement. And so we have all this sectoral agreement at the federal level, and now at the state level, some environmental organizations and law reinforcement, they clearly state that the obligation and the responsibility is towards producers, and they've gone a little further, and they actually linked the environmental license, so the operation license of those producers, to the achievement of the recycling targets. So the law reinforcement was much more at the state level, and also a much more clarity on the player who is actually responsible, which actually at the state level creates a regulatory framework much more similar to the extended producer responsibility we have in Europe. And actually every state is trying to define and to find out what's the best regulatory framework and how to enforce the law. So that's what happened. And 10 years, let's say nowadays, from the solid waste national policy, so it's 10 years of the law, so it's a pretty recent, let's say, early stage market of Brazil, and we are now seeing the first benefits of the law reinforcement at the state of São Paulo, and how recycling targets are increasing. But we are still on the 3 to 7% recycling, overall recycling target. And just to give a lot of more context, we can ask why. And we say here there are two major issues or problems to be solved. One is with infrastructure. So in Brazil, most municipalities doesn't have the recycling accountability towards their contracts. They are much more focused on the collection part of it, and the informality, as I said, the waste pickers. It's a social infrastructure, and I'm gonna deep dive much more on waste pickers and why this issue and of stability and reliability. And then also the price of materials in Brazil are different than in Europe. So every price has a value. It depends also of the alternatives, of the abundance of raw materials, and this end price of materials is much related with whether recycling chain and that specific value chain is profitable or not. So we have different values and different costs for each material. For the waste speakers,
just a second. You have advanced the 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm just Thank you. So waste speakers, we have more than 1,000 waste speakers, mostly women, and it's basically manual sorting, and there is still this we can even do a little math. If 1 million waste speakers produce 3% of recycling targets, to achieve the 22%, we have to have 7-fold the number of waste speakers, which means we'd have there would be more or less 7 million waste speakers in Brazil, which is 5 to 10% of the the economically active population. And so clearly it's not a scalable technology. It's mostly social technology, and of course we are glad for that, but it's not only through waste speakers that we could achieve the recycling targets, and now we are seeing the construction of the MRF, so the manufacturing recycling facility in Brazil, in order to create an additionality towards recycling. And as I mentioned, the prices of materials are different here. For some materials, the value of the material cannot bear the logistics costs of the whole recycling chain. So for some materials, there is a need of subside or of an additional revenues to close this value gap. And that's where we enter. As previous slides, we are in the center of the circular economy. What we do, we track all the data of this circular economy, and we have a strong auditing, even with blockchain, and we have like Ernst Young as a third party to certify our figures, our numbers, and with that data, we create a digital asset that's being called at the Brazilian market as a recycling credits, but it's just like a financial scheme to subsidize some of those value chains that aren't as profitable. And as a similar to the green dot, we have also our label. It's the smiley one, and all the companies that offsets and are compliant with their mandatory recycling, they can use the eureciclo label on their packaging. And I mean, there are a lot of issues in Brazil, and there are a lot of questions on how to solve it. As I said, the regulatory framework isn't as stable as in Europe. There is a clarity of law and fiscalization. There are, I don't know how it happens in Europe, but in Brazil, there is what we call the double taxation. So recycled materials, they are taxed again. So they are taxed at the first time they were created, and then they are taxed again into the second lifetime that they have. So there is a systemic huge cost towards the recycling of those materials. And as I said, there is a huge bottleneck on the sorting phase, and there may be a lot of investments, much more into the mechanized facilities, and how to improve and to do that in an inclusive way with waste speakers. So yeah, I'm sorry about the ending. I have to rush a little, but happy to discuss a little more with all our colleagues here in the roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you, Thiago. Thank you for your presentation. Could you stop share your screen, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah. So we have Marie. I will present Marie. Marie Chauloux, she's the expansion director at New Hope Ecotech and founder of Todosreciclamos label in Chile. She holds a degree of International Business for Sustainability by the European Business School of Paris and post-degree in Social Innovation Management. She was selected in 2017 as one of the worldwide unleashed talent to reach the SDG, and it's part of Global Shapers Network initiative led by World Economic Forum, where she attended the Global Shapers annual meeting in 2019 in Geneva to represent Chile. After 3 years of experience in technology projects for B2B marketing, institutional and large accounts in Paris, she decided to dedicate her knowledge to recycling industry. She was involved in environmental education projects for large cities in France before arriving in Brazil and joined the new Hope Ecotech project in 2015. She led the brand positioning and the marketing area, and then the international expansion strategy for the company. In 2017, she arrived in Chile to lead the expansion in Latin America, where she created the subsidiary Todosreciclamos. Marie, feel free to start. 15 minutes. Thanks.
Perfect. Could you share my presentation? I think Leo is presenting it. If that's okay.
Marie, you are muted.
Oops, sorry. Okay, now we're on. So yeah, I was saying it's very interesting to be here today. We can see the different stages of the EPR implementation from Germany in the 1990 to France 92, Brazil 2010, sorry, and Chile we just passed the law very recently. So it's just like all different steps of how to implement the EPR. So I'm really happy to share with you a bit more about how Chile is doing. If you can go with the next, please. Okay, so as you may be aware of, Chile is part of the OECD organization, and per unit of GDP, we're generating almost as much waste as our friends from Germany. We are an average OECD country generator in terms of waste. And if you can go to the next one. Next slide. But in terms of management, that's another story, unfortunately. So we are kind of way behind. As you can see on the podium, we're still sending much of our waste to landfill. We have few recycling plants. It's getting more and more. We are creating much more now, and compost facilities, very few as well. And which makes us a very high generator in terms of waste, one of the largest in Latin America, actually, per capita. If you can go to the next one, please. So that's why Chile decided to hop on the extended producer responsibility, the EPR legislation that we've been talking a lot in the past presentations. It's been passed very recently. If you can go to the next one, please. So in 2013, the idea comes to the chambers of deputies, and it's only in 2016 that the law was passed, the extended producer responsibility, called REP in Spanish. And in 2019, the first decree for tires regulation was passed. As you may know, Chile is has a rich mining industry, so it's a big challenge. And in 2020, so earlier this year, the decree for packaging was passed with all the goals that are related to it. If you can go to the next slide. So the EPR works very pretty much the same as it would in Europe. We have different products like tires, packaging, batteries, lubricant oil, car batteries, and it's divided. That's one of the specificity I will go on later, between household waste and non-household waste. So for packaging, every company that is putting on the market packaging he's entitled has to be responsible for the packaging and to recycle it. So we're talking about plastics, glass, paper and cardboard, metals, liquid and food boxes. So everyone is included except for small businesses and companies generating less than 300 kilos. You can go to the next one. And this graph really illustrates for me the ambition of Chile. As you can see, we are starting very, very low, and we have big ambition for the next 12 years. So it comes from 60% for liquid boxes such as Tetra Pak, 55% recycled in 12 years for metal, 70% for paper and cardboard, 65% for glass, and 45% for plastic. So I'm leaving the next one, the last one for plastic, because it is a huge challenge. We've all mentioned it. I mean, when we're talking about circular economy, one of the biggest challenge is definitely plastic. There are so many different materials, and today we are recycling 4.5%, and this is going to be the ambition, and the target is 45% by in 12 years time, which is as high as some European countries. If you can go to the next one, perfect. So to get there, we have a 12 years implementation of the EPR regulation. So it's a very progressive target. As you can see, every year this is increasing for all of the material, so that we can reach those very ambitious goals. If you can go to the next one. And I would like to mention 6 different important parts of this legislation, actually. And the first one is that the whole process of the decree for the packaging was submitted to a citizen consultation. So everyone, all the stakeholders and citizens were part of the questioning, and how is this going to work, and which kind of city are we going to put those recollection points, etc. Very participative effort and collective. And in addition, we know that, well, to reach the final goals, is very ambitious goals. This is not going to be done in a year. So the idea is to create a voluntary points, those recollecting points in the city in the first years of implementation. So 75% of Chilean districts should have them. And another important factor with the EPR law in Chile, and I'm going to join my colleague in Brazil, is the incorporation of waste pickers. We have about 60,000 waste pickers in Chile. It's not the 800,000 of Brazil, but still it's a large number. And those are the people that are doing recycling and collecting and sorting today. And the law is really emphasizing on those professionals today, and how they're going to get certificates, and how they're going to be in their packaging scheme as well. Another important factor is the differentiated targets between industrial and household waste. Ursula was saying that it is a huge challenge when you don't have a differentiated target, when it's only household. And I think this is what we can learn as well from different countries that already implemented the EPR, and how we can make it easier for all the stakeholders. Another part of this specificity of the law is the target collection. So 80% in 12 years should be of the whole households in Chile should be covered. And to do that, one very important stakeholder is the packaging recovery scheme, the packaging recovery organization, the EPR scheme, many names for this one entity that we're going to see just after, if you can, perfect. So how this collective system works and is going to work in Chile, we need at least 20 producers associated. This will be authorized by the Ministry of the Environment, and there is a whole plan, a management plan to send to the Ministry of the Environment. And well, in case of infraction, there are fines. This is a very complex system in order to finance and organize the whole recycling system throughout the country. I don't know if there are many Chilean in the audience, but I mean, Chile is a very complex country. It's a very long country, so we have a very many difficulties in terms of geography, which makes it big challenge in terms of logistics. And finally, they have some associated regulations inside the implementation of the EPR. So we were talking about eco-modulation. Franz was saying about the bonus-malus, and Ursula as well was saying about the accumulation tariffs. This is something already happening and being, well, they are thinking about this in Chile to implement it in the EPR system so it has the best effects and we can reach targets as quickly as possible. There is also the product labeling, how if a material is recyclable, if it is not, and also eco-design, so how to make packaging much more recyclable today so we can recycle them and sort them in the most efficient way. We can go to the next. Perfect. So in the practice, how this works, this is a very, I tried to make very simple, but basically this collective scheme is gathering all of those more than 20 producers, and they have to calculate a specific goal. So we have many systems, many companies, sorry, with different types of materials, and they have to calculate the goals and design a waste management plan that they have to send to the Ministry of the Environment to be authorized. They have to call for tender as well for recollection, sorting, and recovery. This is very important and emphasis that the law is making. And at the end of this plan of 5 years authorization by the Ministry of the Environment, there is this whole auditing process by the fiscal entity of the Ministry of the Environment. If you can go to the next one. So what's been done so far, I was saying, so in 2016 was passed the law, and recently this year was the decree of packaging. So we are really early on, and that's why it's so interesting to be here as well today, just to know what's been working in all the different countries in Europe, in Brazil, and what can be implemented today, because this is something that we can change right now. We are really on the early phase of the implementation. So what's been done so far, we have some collective schemes being constituted in the country, some pilots with waste management in different cities throughout the country, and the government is already asking to have reports of the packaging from the producers. So producers already have to pass this information to the government. And at the end of the day, this whole makes this, let's say, this impulse of the EPR is already making some progress. We have 12% recycling of household today, household waste, which is higher than the previous years. If you can go. So what we've done in Chile, as I was saying, that well, New Hope Ecotech is our mother company, and we have different brands throughout the region. Eureciclo in Brazil, todosreciclamos in Chile. And what, if you can go to the next one, sorry, thank you. So since we arrived in 2016, and we started the company in 2018 in Chile, and we've been working with more than 120 producers, and as I'm talking right now, there are so many more coming. It's really interesting to see that it's a real driver. I mean, the EPR is definitely a very important driver to higher the recycling rates in a country. We are present in 7 different regions, working with different operators, working on raising consumer awareness throughout social networks, different operations we've been doing. And since 2019, we've been working as a partner of the Plastic Pact. And the whole idea, and I mean, I was saying on the circular economy of plastic, which is a tremendous challenge when we're talking about plastic, to make it recirculate. The whole idea of the Plastic Pact is definitely to achieve new goals in terms of recirculation of plastic, to have recycled content. Ursula was saying earlier about the whole system that they are doing right now is having more recycling content inside packaging and recirculate the whole packaging. So the idea of the Plastic Pact is to gather all of those partners, those stakeholders, and there are more than 80, 80 companies throughout retailers, consultancy, technology company, producers. And the whole idea is just to how we're going to tackle this challenging plastic issue that we're having today. And I will stop with this photo. So this is some operators that we have been working with the last year and a half. So we couldn't be more happy that really it's a very starting emerging phase of the EPR in Chile. There are already so many initiatives working, and it's very few times at some operators, and some others are doing way more. It depends as well on the collection program they're using. Some are using trucks, others are using recovery points, others are using different systems, just like in a very testing phase. And we are working with different operators from the south, deep south of the country of Chile to the north, which makes it a big challenge as well in terms of logistics, as I was saying earlier. Thank you.
Thanks,
I will stop here.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Could you stop share screen? It's okay.
Great.
So thank you all for the presentation of the first part of the event. That was really good. I enjoyed a lot, understand a little bit what happened in Germany, France, Brazil. Brazil, in fact, I know a little bit, but also in Chile was awesome. Thank you, guys. So now we're going to the second part of the event. That first part, we talk about past, how was the implementation of the recycling system in each country. Now we're going to discuss about the future trends for the coming. So you have commented that you have seen great transformation in the sector in the last 20 years. But now, what's the innovation, trends and strategy to get more recycled materials, recycling of complex materials? So we are going to discuss the new trends for the future. So I would like to invite Ursula to talk again. Thanks, Ursula. You have 5 minutes. Sorry for guys for controlling the time, but you know, like we started in delay, so we have to try to compensate it a little bit. Sorry.
That's fine. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. Hopefully we can see what's going on here and here. Okay, can you see me? You see the screen? Okay, yes. Good. Yes. Axel already gave us a roadmap of what's happening in Europe. We see that the European Commission and DG Environment is very ambitious. If we look at what they pushed through over the last 5 years, there's really no stopping them. And I always say, if you look, you know, from a point of view of obliged industry, EPR has to show that it can find solutions itself and not only be driven by policy, because if we don't act, if we don't show that we can do the job, there will be bans on plastic, there will be taxes for non-recycled plastics, there will be enforced obligatory targets for recycled content, and those all limit. I mean, they're better than nothing, but I always say that that industry and producers should be able, with their combined brilliance, to find solutions to those issues. Design for recycling is a big issue for us. Focusing mainly, really 95% of the problems come with plastics packaging. We have packaging that is not sortable because it's carbon based. It cannot be sorted in the automatic sorting plants that we have in Germany. There is no recycling path, for example, for PET trays, huge volumes in the market with nowhere to go. We have orange juice containers that just cause problems with other plastics in the PET fraction, and we have multi-layer packaging, you know, 8 different layers of plastics in one single foil. The question is always, do we really need all that, or can we not simplify packaging and still have the same performance? So this is something we're very active and engaging with our clients in, and also in roundtables and expert groups, etc. Because if we don't work on the design of packaging, it's going to be very hard for us to reach the targets. We can improve the sorting of the sorting plants, we can do magic in recycling, but the materials that we have to deal with also have to be improved in order to make it possible for us to recycle. Axel already mentioned the Circular Plastics Alliance. That's an important incubator for ideas. Now, with regard to recycling, everybody says, you know, we're turning recycled plastics into park benches. At least that's a motto in Germany. That's an easy way to get rid of it. I think that's a thing of the past. If we look at the applications and the examples of our clients that we have developed with them, we can come up with highly sophisticated packaging that is made from post-consumer materials from the yellow bin and the yellow bag. So we're quite proud of that, and we keep winning awards. This is a global first here. It's a shower gel. I have a bottle here. It's made from HDPE, and the first time that post-consumer material from household collection is used in a cosmetic or a body care product. So progress is possible. We also are working on tubes such as this. Now the problem is that this kind of packaging everybody wants, and the material you need for that is white or natural colored HDPE flakes. Those are hard to get. We love companies who come up with innovative solutions, for example, making packaging from gray plastics, because then you can also find a home for colored plastics that are not so easy to recycle. So those are the challenges we're facing. But again, we believe progress is possible. The sky is the limit. I can add more mottos. I do believe that EPR is the right path to deal with the environmental impact of packaging. But again, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And if I look at your stories, which I find fascinating, there's a lot of things I recognize, different challenges, but on a similar scale of historical development. So it's wonderful to be able to exchange these ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Ursula. Very nice representation. I'd like to say that I love it, your picture behind you of the green dot. It's awesome.
Yes, I didn't make it myself, but
it's pretty awesome. So Anne-Sophie, now I think I didn't understand the beginning, but now you can present the second part about the innovation. Feel free to continue the presentation.
Yeah, sure. Good morning again, everybody. Is it okay, Marcos? Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, great. Sorry, I don't switch on the camera because I have some connection issues. So just in case, I prefer that you can hear me. And yeah, thank you all for the presentation. It was really interesting. What we wanted to do, and I won't go much into details, but I hope we can share the slides afterwards, not to be too long. But what we wanted to do is to widen a bit the scope and to tell you about this open innovation program that we have initiated within CITEO, and to give you some concrete examples, concrete solutions that we are working with and that we think illustrate the trends that we see at the moment around circular economy. So not just on recycling, but really on the whole value chain of circular economy and on different types of innovation. So first of all, what I can say is that within CITEO, we really believe that innovation is a key driver to transform all the challenges that we're facing now into new opportunities, creating value for all the actors, achieve our targets that you have seen are very ambitious, and our 100% solutions for all packaging and paper strategy that we have. And for that, we have created this open innovation program that rests really on 2 pillars. That innovation is not just about new ideas, new concepts, it's really about finding concrete solutions that are going to be implemented on the market, and that it arises from the exchange of different perspectives. It is born at the crossroads of different functions, sectors, locations, state of minds. And I think it's very important to see that today we cannot innovate as maybe we used to do in the past, behind closed doors, that we live in an open world, and that we have very much to get through sharing our ideas and sharing our projects. And that's with this state of mind that we are working now. So this open innovation program that you see on the slide is called Circular Challenge, and it has around 40 different partners working with us on all types of innovation. So obviously technological, but also digital, social, environmental, obviously, and more also innovation in the service, packaging as a service, and innovation in uses. So all about the reuse of packaging. That is a growing trend in France. We also started working on that. The mission, as you see on the left, the mission of that program is really to detect, experiment, and accelerate the most innovative and promising solutions in our packaging and paper industries. We do the detection part through a competition that we organize every year. And we were quite happy last year to have a new Hope Ecotech among our finalists, because since the beginning we've been working at the global level. So we source and we detect and we select projects all around the world, because we think that the challenges that we face now are really global, and that we can learn a lot by looking at how other countries and other project holders are doing, and what types of project they are implementing. And so last year, yeah, we had a new Hope Ecotech as a finalist, and that's thanks to them that we are in front of you today. So this competition that we have, it allows us really to detect some project every year, and then to coach them. We have a boot camp that is organized at the end of every year to do that, and to give them expertise, and then to get them to experiment with us, because we realize that at the beginning, the projects, whether they are a startup, they are an association, they are an SME, they obviously need money, and we give them some help to raise money as well. But they also need a field to experiment their project, their service, or their technology. And that's what we are doing as well. Directly, CITEO is partnering with some solutions, or we are doing some innovation project with new methodologies like design thinking, for instance. And at the end of the day, our goal is really to accelerate this transition towards circular economy, and we believe that the entrepreneurs and the project holders are a key part of that, because we have to, I think we are all aware of the urgency we are in at the moment, that we have 10 years to achieve the SDGs, and that our economy is really far from being circular. So if you look at the last circularity gap report that was published at the beginning of 2020 by Circular Economy, so it's a Dutch social business, and it was published in Davos, so they are partnering with the World Economic Forum, and every year they publish this report, and they show that the economy at the moment is only 8.6 circular, and that actually the trend is a bit reversing. So it's quite alarming, and obviously it goes way beyond our scope of packaging and paper. It's like really a global analysis of all the materials that are produced every year. But I think, yeah, the emergency situation really requires like all the implication, the involvement, and the ambition that we can have. And just to tell you a bit about concrete solutions that we think illustrates some key trends, and that you will have more details about them in other slides that I don't have time to present. The first one is a French SME that has been reinventing itself, if you like. That is producing a packaging, a flexible packaging made of a monomaterial paper base without plastic additive. And we see that this attraction towards paper and cellulose-based packaging is growing because of all the issues with different types of plastic that we've been discussing. And this SME is now receiving a lot of attraction among our clients and businesses in France. The second one is an association that is called Earthwake, that is also French, but that is targeting developing countries and isolated territories. And this association is working to develop a paralyzer, so kind of a chemical recycling technology that they are putting in a small machine. And the idea is that the machine will be easy to move and easy to get in function, so they can democratize, if you like, these new recycling technologies. So it's made to be a low-tech plastic pyrolyzer that can turn plastic waste into fuel. And they are targeting in priority, as I said, some isolated countries, so maybe some French islands, but also some economies in transition and emerging countries. The third one is called Pandobac, and here we're moving towards packaging as a service. That is a growing trend, as I was saying, and it's part of the new circular business models that are now getting developed. And this startup is offering a tailor-made service to replace disposable packaging, cardboard boxes, wooden crates, polystyrene boxes used by food professionals. So it's a B2B service. They are replacing those disposable packaging with a system of reusable and eco-design crates. And so it works with a subscription fee, and the restaurants or the wholesalers are subscribing every month, and their packaging, once it's used, it's put back in the system through a reverse logistic system, and then it's washed and then sent back to the restaurants. So it's really trying to create this circular model. And then the last one, it's an industrial startup that is called Lactips, and that is producing a 100% biosourced thermoplastic material based on milk proteins. And what is interested in them, sorry, I'm losing my voice, is among all the biosourced material that we see, is that this one is water soluble, and so it doesn't create microparticles when it's dissolved in the water. So the first applications was a dishwasher tablets, a packaging for dishwasher tablets. And they are now working with us to develop new applications. And they just raised 13 million euros in France with BASF and other major actors. So they're also getting quite some traction. So yeah, sorry, I'm speaking a bit fast to try to cover the slide, but that's what I wanted to tell you. And in the following slides, you will have more details about each of these projects. And just to finish, I think that also we are in the context of a major crisis. We're still in the context of the COVID-19, and especially where you are, it's a very important issue right now. And I think it will obviously have an impact on all our activities and also on all this entrepreneurial ecosystem that we are trying to support and to help towards a circular economy. And so that's why this year Circular Challenge, this program, has been launched again with a new ambition. So it's still growing because we really think that this year, among all the issue that we face, it's still very important to support the entrepreneurs. So our call for project is open at the moment. If somebody in the room is interested, he can get in touch. We'll be pleased to give you more details. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Anne-Sophie. Would you please start? Okay, thank you. And so, because of the delay of the presentation, Brazil and Chile, we decided not to present because we've already passed the time. I would like to ask for Ursula, Axel, if you can stay some more minutes to maybe do one or more, Ursula answer 15 minutes, okay? I will have one or two questions. Axel and Sophie, can you stay a little bit more?
Yes, of course. Okay,
thank you very much. So for the first question, I remember Ursula, and the first question is from Daniela Pereira. Ursula, she discussed that DSD has passed for a transformation from a monopoly non-profit organization to a private-owned for-profit company in 2005. So the two questions is I think it's more for Ursula and Axel and Anne-Sophie. In the EPR industry, what's the difference, and which one do you think is the best between a market with a monopoly player versus several players competing each other? And the same question, and what's the difference, and which one do you think is more efficient in managing a pro-package recovery organization if the organization is an NGO, a non-profit versus a for-profit? So a pro, which one is better, if it's a monopoly or several players compete each other? And the pro, is it better to be an NGO, non-profit, or a for-profit? Ursula and Axel, you have the words.
All right, I will grab the opportunity. I have lived in both worlds, the monopoly world and the competitive world. And you cannot compare them. As I said, that's the study we did with Deloitte. The models that we follow in Germany and France are very, very different. The EPR schemes have very different functions. I do not regret the change from the monopoly to the competitive model. Because it gets us closer to the action. For us, it's a new partnership with big producers who do projects with us. We can branch out into more areas. We can now recycle plastics ourselves. We can do consulting. We are a lot more free in the business activities we choose. It is a lot more difficult than it was before to really make sure that everybody pays their fair share, which is why I would make the recommendation, if you introduce competition in EPR, make sure that you have strong legislation and actually somebody who is there to sanction and to control this legislation. You need a level playing field. It can work. It is working better than it was in Germany. But if you ask me, I have a lot more fun today than I had 20 years ago during monopoly times. It's a different kind of work. I'm sure that that Axel has a different perspective. Maybe not. Who knows?
Thanks.
Just to complete, I would say that if it's a non-profit organization in a more specific situations, I think you need to have more operationality in your system to be sure to achieve your targets. And I'm fully in line with Ursula. Even if it's a monopolistic market or a competitive market, you need to have a regulatory authority and to have some fine if you don't reach the targets, to have an incentive as an EPR to really fully complete your accreditation.
Okay, thank you guys. So I have another question. It's from Leo Plants. With all knowledge and large experience of European countries dealing with waste, what is your or was the main motivation for people change their habits in Germany and France, considering recycling social culture? So the first one is for change their habits in Germany and France. So the question is for Ursula, Axel, and Sophie. And also he has another question that, in the opinion of Ursula and Axel, punishing bad polluters through laws and regulation or rewarding consumer and enterprise concerned about responsible and sustainable product, which one is more effective? So the first question is about the habit of people, and the second, it's about what's better one. It's punishing the producers or incentivate people. Which one is the best? I don't know which one.
If you allow me, I will just
okay.
grab the first statement. Habits. I always say that Germans like to put round things in round holes and square things in square holes. So we're very well trained to sort our waste. We're environmentally conscious. We like to do our part. Even so, we see that there has been, in the 90s, we had a lot of money, thanks to being a monopoly, a lot of money for communication, for education of the public, etc. And we could see that that helped in the quality of recycling or of sorting. With competition, those funds were cut back. And we see the results now. We see that consumers do not separate as well as they used to. So there is a need for keeping the consumer informed, even though they all say they contribute. The realities show a different light. Change in habits. What we find is the easier you make it for the consumer to collect their packaging or sort their packaging close to the household, the better the participation rate is. If we have a couple of cities like Munich, for example, where you have to go to a recycling center, so you have to take your recyclables and carry them however far to a recycling center. There, the average amount of packaging sorted is about 5 kilograms a year per person, per inhabitant, and we have an average of 28 kilos a year. So in areas where you have the classic, the yellow bin for household collection, you get a lot more materials back, which is what we need. A lot of materials in good quality. The second point, punishing producers versus incentivizing consumers. I wouldn't see EPR as a punishment. I think it's an opportunity for producers to help shape the afterlife of the products that they put on the market. And if you incentivize consumers, I think that can only ever be a pinpoint. It's only effective for small fractions of the waste that we deal with. Nobody wants to have to, return all the packaging that they unpack at home to different stores, stuff it into a machine, wait until you get your reward card, etc. So that was the question. I think it's EPR that is set up conveniently for the consumer, at the household with easy sorting instructions already is a reward enough, because the consumer can participate in the system easily and do something good for the environment every day.
Great, thanks.
And from the French perspective, I think like it's quite the same regarding consumer point of view. The consumer need a purpose for the sorting gesture, and I think in France we like the nudging, the green nudge to help to sort the waste, plus the economic incentive of course. So this is why we put in place reverse vending machines to have vouchers and that you can use directly to the retailers, for example. Plus, of course, you need education programs and communication awareness raising campaigns. So we have specific campaigns for household packaging, but also for all products. So, for example, in France, all EPR schemes need to contribute by 3% of their budget degree to communications, but for all waste products. And as explained Ursula, of course, I think like EPR is really an opportunity. So we need to incentivize to have an incentive for brand owners through eco-modulations, of course, but we need also to be sure of the scope of the EPR. And I think it's one of the change now at the European level with the new philosophy of the EPR of what is an EPR? Is it the responsibility really to the producer, or is it the shared responsibility? And now with littering cost for the EPR, it's not the same logic. So now we need to cover the costs, but it's not really our responsibility to the consumers to sort the waste. So I think now we need to have strong measures for communications and awareness raising campaigns directly, plus to develop and increase collection points everywhere to be sure to reduce littering and not pay for the littering. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think another question is from Andrea, Portugal. What's the percentage of plastic produced is recycled, and what percent is mechanical recycled, and what percent goes to energy recovery, waste to energy?
Okay, the numbers for Germany, I think I showed. We do not have any more landfilling in Germany since 2005, which is an incredible help for recycling, because you don't have that ability anymore to divert lots of packaging to landfill. So in 2018, that's the last official national figures, it's about 50.5% mechanical recycling, and the rest goes to waste to energy or fuel replacement mechanisms. We have to reach, as I said, for 2022, we have to reach mechanical recycling of 63%. So that's a challenge, but I think we'll be able to do it. Of course, you know, we're going to have to invest into the system in order to reach those targets.
And the figures for France for plastic packaging is 26.5%. So we know that we have a big target for 2022 and for 2025 regarding the European targets. So we need to recycle 50% of plastic packaging by 2035 and 55% by 2030. So yes, of course, we need to push for a more recycling process, specifically on flexible plastic packaging, and to increase collection points, selective collection points, of course, especially for plastic bottles, and to put in place a deposit return system if it's possible in 3 years after the study of the government, to know if the figures are good or not regarding the plastic bottles.
Marie, Thiago would like to say something? Because we're just starting this in Brazil, in Chile.
Well, as I said, in Brazil, Can you see me? No, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the recycling target is 22%. There has been a huge discussion on the official numbers of the plastic targets and the plastic rates. I mean, there is a lot of confusion whether the post-consumption must include or not the post-industrial waste, or it's just like from the municipality's solid waste origins. And for some materials, we have like PET is 22%, and for other plastics, the figures aren't as publicized. And towards like energy or waste to energy, also there's been a huge discussion of energy recovery through solid waste, and it's actually a current discussion, a huge debate being right now if the market's gonna open for waste to energy solutions.
So guys, we had past the 15 minutes that Ursula said. We have extended for 25 minutes from the event. We're sorry for the beginning. We have to finish the event now. And I just would like to thank you so much, the participation of all you who had patience to see, ask questions. We could not answer all questions, so we're gonna send the question for all the speakers, and if they can answer, we can send it back. And also, I'd like to thank you the participation of you 5 outstanding speakers: Ursula, Axel, Marie, Thiago, and Anne-Sophie. Thank you so much for the participation, for the event. It was an honor to have all you with us today, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you,
for
everyone.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking
right.
forward for the next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.